Hello, and welcome to another episode of D.U.M Talks. I'm your host, Dan Mitchem.
All right, and today we're talking with Justin. How's it going, Justin?
What's up, Dan? Thanks for having me, man.
Hey, thanks for being had. Always a pleasure talking with you, sir. We are talking today about your podcast. What is the name of your podcast?
It's called Tsunami Healing. It's been a journey, man. It's been a lot of fun.
When did you start it?
I started in March of 2018.
Okay. What was your motivation for wanting to do a podcast?
Man, long story short, it was something I had swirling around in my head for probably about 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
Back in like 2012, 2013. It originally started out, man, I just wanted to interview interior designers because that's what I went to school and college for. Long story short, I took it to the board of American Society of Interior Designers in Washington, D.C. They declined. They said no because they were like, we want you to have full creative control. Years later, I met a guy. He runs the Every Day is Saturday podcast.
Yeah.
He's awesome. I bought his program and got started, and I, was trying to think of a topic, and literally like God himself gave me this idea. This word healing kept coming to me. So I was doing a lot of personal development events, and anytime that word healing kept coming up, anytime anybody asked me, like, what do you bring to the world? What is it for you to do? That I just kept saying healing, like it just naturally came. So I wanted to have a show, but I was like, I can't have 8 different shows because I wanted to talk about all these different things. So what happened was I had this idea of like interview creative artists and whatever creative thing that they do, how is that therapeutic, healing, and cathartic for them? And thus, Tsunami Healing was born.
Very nice. I find this a little ironic because you had me on an episode of your podcast, and now I have you on an episode of my podcast. How the tables have turned.
Yeah, man.
Now I have you in the hot seat. What exactly is your podcast about? What are you talking with people about?
I have people from all walks of life. Voiceover actors, directors, scare actors. I've had an astrologist. I've had an MMA fighter. A lot of writers, a lot of makeup artists. And again, it's about whatever creative thing that they do. How is that healing, therapeutic, cathartic for them and the people around them? So I started building this community of people, right? So I have a lot of voiceover actors. I got a lot of scare actors, a lot of people from the haunt and Halloween industry that are following me in this group. And it's basically, whatever thing that I'm into at the time or whatever, because I like a lot of different things. If it's music, if it's something to do in the entertainment industry or whatever it is, I'll try to find that person. And a lot of these people, I'm meeting at Comic-Cons or at live events. I'll have them on the show and, we get to connect and talk about what they like to do. So there's that. That's Tsunami Healing. That's the free show. You can find that on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, all those platforms. But then I switched it over kind of this past year, with everything happening and, it was hard to get guests on. So what I noticed when I was doing my regular shows, when I just talk about like my personal life or like personal events or personal development things that I was doing, my ratings would spike. So then I kind of created this whole other show called Tsunami Uncut. And that's all our Patreon episodes. So I don't edit those episodes. And that's just talking about any book that I've read, any event that I've been to, or anything about my life. And those are pretty raw. Those are vulnerable. Some of them a lot of them are free, but it is like $3 a month on my Patreon for it. There's a good plethora of that. And that's a lot. Again, a lot of that is just personal development stuff that I'm doing in my life that, hopefully can help other people.
That's great. And where can people check out that one?
That is at patreon.com/Tsunami Healing.
I haven't heard of Patreon. Is that a website where you can put podcasts, or is that something that you named?
So Patreon is a membership platform website. A lot of people have them. I found out about it through kind of like the cosplay community. It's basically you set up different tiers of memberships for people and they could pay a certain amount a month and they get access to, it could be photographs, it could be podcast episodes, it could be whatever that you offer. I just decided to set up an additional podcast through it.
Oh, okay. Are you going to continue doing both, or are you going to kind of just stick with this new one now?
I am. I do both. So Tsunami Healing, the show that we originally started in March, that is not going away. That's always going to be free. We usually do at least 1 to 2 episodes a week for the past 2 years, but I'm going to do about 1 episode a month now with that. But the Patreon, we're doing like 2 or 3 episodes a week. So I do both. And because I can do the Patreon episodes so quick because I don't edit them, I can put them out pretty fast. So I can record pretty quickly. So yeah, you have both. Tsunami Healing is all the fun celebrity guests, and Patreon is more about me personally, if you want to get to know me more.
Okay, and that's really cool that you're branching out and doing others as well.
Yeah. It's been a lot of fun.
Is it too early to ask if you have like another idea that you're going to be branching out with?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Dan. I have ideas swirling around in my head all the time. Right now, in these past couple of years, Tsunami Healing started as something that was just kind of a passion project for me. And it's grown into something pretty big. It's been pretty cool. I mean, I got hundreds of followers now that are dedicated. I just did an episode of stats, and people are listening to us in 62 different countries, which is crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, so obviously, and I've had a lot of backlash from episodes that I've done that people didn't like what I said, or they were really passionately moved. A lot of people I've helped. I did an episode about suicide, and that I had people I hadn't talked to in years reach out to me about that. So people are very moved. So I do both, and I have ideas. I eventually want to have merch. I had just had my first panel at a Comic-Con in 2019, and I was going to try to have a booth at Comic-Cons and try to do more events and be at, concerts and live events and MMA shows. And obviously we kind of went in a different direction. But the thing that I want to do and I want to work on this year is I want to have another tier for a membership for my Patreon. And that is going to be, I'm thinking $5 a month. That's whatever creative thing that I'm working on, because I want to start writing my own comic books. I want to start putting out PDFs of how to help people with relationships, how to find their authentic voice. That's kind of going to be the new tier of the membership. Because right now I just have 3 tiers, which is a $2, $3, and $4. And that's mostly based around the Uncut podcast.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And you said you did a panel in 2019. How did you get into doing that? Did they reach out to you, or what happened?
No, that was a long journey and process to even figure out how to do that. With most of these Comic-Con conventions, you have to submit online an idea for your panel, and then it may or may not get approved. And I actually submitted 4, and only one of them got approved, which was fine, because that was our most diverse one. We had a comic book writer, a book writer, and a person who had his own pop-up Comic-Con like merch store, and we had a director. So we had all those people on our panel, which was really cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. I'm going to paint you a little picture, because I just started my podcast a couple months ago. My setup so far is I just have a microphone plugged into my laptop.
Mm-hmm.
I got my headphones plugged in. When I'm done recording the audio, I edit the tracks, and then I shave it down.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me how you started off, and then what's your setup look like now? Do you have like a whole room or anything, or what?
Yeah, so my setup is not too far off from where I started, actually. And I learned all this from the guy that I bought the program from. I have a laptop, just a regular Samsung laptop. I use Audacity. I record in there. You can get that free off of Google. And I have a Blue Yeti microphone that I had originally got for doing voiceover, and then I wound up creating this podcast for it. So that's like my base stationary. And I just do that right out of my office space, right out of my bedroom. So I started going to all these comic conventions and these live events. So with that, I have a little H1N1 hand recorder, and I just take that with me. And I got the full accessory for it. So I have a stand, I got extra headphones and all that. But yeah, that's more mobile. So it's a little bit easier to bring back and edit later.
Yeah, I've got something similar. I don't have a tripod or anything for it, but it's just a little handheld recorder.
Yeah.
I like it because it plugs directly into the computer or whatever.
Yeah, and I was actually, I got that idea from one of my celebrity guests that I interviewed, Ming Chen from Comic Book Men, if anybody watches it. He was the one, he's like, oh, you should get an H1N1 recorder. And I was like, what the heck is that? He's like, look it up. And then I came back, I was like, oh, Ming, I got one. Thanks, dude. I appreciate it.
A friend of mine told me about it because he's on Twitch, so he's playing video games and people are watching or joining and stuff like that. And he bought a mobile recorder because he was trying to, I think it's because he wanted to do Twitch with D&D, like when he goes over to a friend's house and plays. So I think that's why he bought the mobile one.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. I mean, the guy that I bought the podcast from, his name is Sam Crowley. He runs the Every Day is Saturday podcast. It's back to his point, man. Like, there's no wrong way of doing it. I think people get so caught up in, like, you need the best microphone and the best setup. There is no wrong way. Like, I think the main thing is just put it out there. Just start.
Oh, yeah.
You can start somewhere and then you'll get better equipment or you won't. And, the main thing is you just want to get your message out there. So, yeah. And I mean, there's all different ways. Like you said, you could do it. You could do it on Twitch. It depends on what your message is and the people you're trying to reach.
Yeah. And I mean, that's pretty much how I started too. I just wanted to try it out, see how it goes.
Yeah.
I put the message out there, hey, because I'm trying to just talk with a bunch of different people about a bunch of different topics. And I think with that sort of freedom, I got a ton of friends and stuff that are all down to do it. So pretty much it seems like almost every day I'm recording different people, and then I just have a whole stack full of episodes to edit and put up online.
Yeah, it's the best way to like meet new people and gain new friends, because it's like, it's one thing to say, hey man, can I have a really deep conversation with you? We can get really vulnerable and talk about really cool stuff. That's kind of weird. But if you say, hey man, can you be a guest on my podcast? Sure. Of course you're going to talk about all the deep, cool stuff, but it's like, it's just a different way of putting it, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure you've noticed too on your podcasts, I think it just boils down to everybody wants to be heard. They get that sort of freedom to come on a podcast and just talk about things that interest them or inspire them or things that they want to know more about.
Right, man. Absolutely.
Also, it's relatable to people too, depending on the topic. Then you have people listening in that they're learning stuff by different episodes, and then maybe they in turn want to be on your episode.
Exactly. Yeah.
Are you going up to mostly people you know for your episodes? Are you reaching out to anyone, or how do you go around getting guests on your show?
Luckily for me, man, I'm really good at networking. And I'm really, I guess, good at reaching out to people. A lot of the guests that I have on my show, they are people that I meet from Comic Cons. And they're more like celebrity people that I meet from Comic Cons. And then, I try to get people who are well known in their industry. Like, for example, like I have a lot of scare actors on the show. My family back in the East Coast might have never heard of, this scare actor from Knott's Berry Farm, but every big person in the haunt industry at Midsummer Scream does. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a process and a way to do it. I know the hardest people to get on my show are actors because you got to go through, their talent agency or you got to go through their talent manager. Same thing with like if I try to get a musical artist on.
Yeah.
The bigger they are, the harder they are going to be to get on your show. But for the most part, I mean, even the bigger ones that I meet at the Comic Cons and at the live events, they're pretty cool. Like if you just go up to them and say, hey, I'd love to get you on the show, just say, what's the best way? And, they'll tell you go through this person or send this email. And sometimes they'll be down to do it right there. Kind of all depends. So, I mean, it's really who do you want to have on your show?
Yeah.
I've had people on my show that people never ever heard of, but I think they're cool. And I interview them because they have a story and they have really cool things that they've done in their life. And then people are like, dude, I'm so glad that you interviewed that person. I would have never known, like, they were a Marine or whatever it is that they did,
Yeah, well, and everybody's got a talent or a hobby of sorts. It's cool to get them to be able to showcase their talents off and stuff, too.
Right.
I have a friend, he started doing TikTok just for the hell of it. And a company reached out to him and they want to use him as voiceover for some of their cartoons that are coming out.
That's awesome, dude. See, I love stories like that, man. I mean, that's where it's at,
And who would have thought using a platform like TikTok where you're just kind of goofing around, someone random sees it and now he's going to be voicing a couple cartoons coming out on TV.
Right.
Well, and then going back to conventions and horror nights and stuff. I love going to conventions. I try to go to two of the Halloween themed ones or horror themed ones. And then I go to a couple like the Comic-Con spin-offs, if you will, WonderCon, stuff like that. The relationship with the two, with doing Halloween Horror Nights as a character or other parks as a character and stuff, and then going to conventions. It's funny because you see a lot of your friends at these conventions. So it's just like another reunion, if you will.
Exactly. And you realize like it's a small world. I mean, there's hundreds of thousands of people here, but yeah, you run into it, you're like, oh man, like I didn't know you were into this too.
Even other people, like you just notice, you start seeing the same groups of people and stuff. So then eventually you kind of befriend them and now you have convention friends that you see once or twice a year, depending on how many you're going to and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you a cosplayer, if you will, or do you dress up at all when you go to conventions? Or are you mostly going to do your podcast?
Yeah, so mostly when I go, I'm press and I'm trying to run around. I'm trying to see everything I want to see as far as panels and booths and get the merch that I want, but then also too trying to get the guest on the show. Like I've already pre-planned like who I'm going to try to talk to. But what I like to do, I mean, since I'm not a huge cosplayer, is I just like to wear my wrestling shirts.
Yeah.
It's much bigger today, but there's still not a lot of people who are. So when I find somebody else with the wrestling shirt, there's like that automatic connection there.
Oh yeah.
That's my way of cosplaying, is I just keep it simple.
Well, and to each their own. It's kind of 50-50 when you go to these things. You got people in costumes, you got people that are just wearing regular clothes. Then you even have, which kind of negates the whole 50-50 analogy, but then you got people that go above and beyond. I mean,
yeah, people are very serious about it. Yeah.
Yeah, the way people can come up with some of these costumes and stuff. I have a friend, she made a full xenomorph costume, the alien from Aliens.
Yes.
She made the full xenomorph out of foam latex, and it was phenomenal. It looked like it was right off of the movie.
I really appreciate it. And I mean, the level of detail, I mean, these people are spending all year making these costumes, and then they go to these shows and they spend hours and so much money. And look, I appreciate all that. I'm just not good at it, but I will interview you on my show about it and we can talk about the things that you can do. But I will tell you, some of the most dedicated people I've seen too is the anime conventions. There is literally, I was like the only person in regular clothes. Like every single person is in cosplay. And like they have their dedicated person from the show that they watched. You can only find like on YouTube or this certain platform. And I mean, they go all out. But yeah, I mean, across the board, like I love it. It's like Halloween. You know, when you go, everybody's dressed up. It's awesome.
I went to one of the Comic-Con spin-offs, the one that goes to
Mhm.
LA. Right in the center, they had a whole tent or a stand or something
Yeah.
like that. They had it to promote the Jay and Silent Bob
Yeah.
reboot.
Yeah.
And this was the day that Jay and Silent Bob were going to make an appearance. And you should have seen the line of people all dressed up
Mhm.
as all different versions of their characters from their different movies and stuff. It's pretty interesting to see all the different costumes and all the time and effort.
Absolutely, man. I mean, it was a big culture shock for me because I mean, I came from Virginia, you know, and I saw this and I'm like, wow, I was like, this is what people do to like be entertained. But, like, it's so cool.
Oh, yeah. I grew up in Montana, so similar. I mean, I don't even think the entire state really has much of a Comic-Con per se.
Yeah.
So I was limited to dressing up in plays and Halloween, and then I come down to California, and pretty much everywhere you go, there's an opportunity to put on a costume and stuff. So going back to the podcast, there are certain ones that do video, where you can see the two people talking, or there's other podcasts where it's kind of more like a PowerPoint presentation. They're just throwing up images of what they're talking
Mhm.
about. Is either one of those something that you would venture over to, or you just kind of like keeping it audio?
You know, I would love to do more visual. I would need a team. You know, I need more people because right now it's just me. It is kind of cool, like to do audio. I mean, I mean, I would definitely have a reach a lot more people. You know, if I threw it up on YouTube or if I was doing some sort of visual. But I mean, that's why we have our Instagram. Our Instagram is very active, posting every week, every other day on there. So that is the closest thing I have to a visual. But yeah, I mean, I would love to do more videos. That's kind of what I feel like I've been called to be more seen, especially recently. But I mean, who knows what's in store? You know, I'm definitely open to it, but right now we're mostly audio.
I'm having a similar thought too. I would love to try different things for different episodes, but the problem with doing visual, myself and then the other person I'm talking to, is just you got people in all sorts of
Hmm.
different states. How do you do that? Do you just ship
Right.
everyone the equipment so that they can have a good microphone and camera or whatever? Somewhere down the road, it would be cool to do a sort of visual podcast. Maybe I'll just get one of my local friends to do one with me, and then we'll just already be
Yeah,
there.
no, that's the coolest thing. And I mean, that's what I found is collaborating with other people and just seeing what other people are doing too. Like even right now, you know, we got to connect the Wave Healing Nation with Mr. Dan Mitchem over here, man. It's cool. You know, you meet so many different people and there's so many different things that people are doing. And I mean, I know a lot of people, a lot of my podcaster friends, I mean, they got their cameras, they got their teams, they're at these shows and you see them. It's like, oh, hey, what's up, man? It's cool. And I mean, that's why I wear my vest, you know, because when I wear the Tsunami Healing vest, I go and people see like, oh, that's Justin, you know, he runs Tsunami Healing. That's cool. Brand yourself, you know, so the way people know who you are.
Yeah, I'll tattoo my forehead with Dumb
There
Talks.
you go, man.
So ultimately, moving forward with your podcast, what would you like to see happen?
Yeah, I mean, dude, the sky's the limit. You know, I started this for fun. You know, I had no idea I would be where I am so quickly with it. I mean, we're already past 200 episodes, which is crazy to me. I would love to continue to do panels. I eventually want to have our own booths at some of these Comic Con shows. Last year, I wanted to branch out and do more live events, like, you know, go to UFC events, Bellator events, go to more music festivals, you know, go to EDC Las Vegas and go to Coachella and all this cool stuff. But yeah, it's just been fun doing the uncut episodes. And then also, too, man, you know, like I said, I want to have merch. I want to grow a team, you know, be able to pay people eventually to do this. But this is, like I said, this is something I do on the side. You know, I'm doing a lot of other things. It's just fun, man. I want to grow the Wave Healer Nation. I want to grow the community, man, and just bring all sorts of people into the Wave Healer Nation, man, because I think that's kind of the message is like, you know, right now, the world is so divided, especially the United States right now. And if I can bring people together for just a moment, to talk about something that we all love, whether it's comic books or whether it's horror movies or whatever it is, if I can get a group of people together with different views to come and agree on something that we all love, that in itself is a win. And that's healing and therapeutic for me. So that's what I want to do is just grow the community.
And that's what I love about your podcast is you're promoting positive things. That's kind of what I'm trying to do with mine. I'm just trying to talk about uplifting things, fun topics, hobbies, interests, anything that just gets your mind off of all the negativity that's floating around, because people can make negativity spread like wildfire. The harder thing to do is to spread the positivity. And I think the more podcasts, the more shows, cartoons, anything out there, the more things that are spreading positive energy out there, those are the things that we need to focus on.
I thoroughly agree, man. Absolutely.
Is there anything else you want to add into this podcast?
Hey, if you guys haven't checked it out yet, Horrorvelt. by Mr. Larry Bones. The trailer is out. Go check it out. We are pushing to hopefully get that filmed here this year. We were going to do a lot of panels at Comic-Con. Don't think that we're not going to push for that when these shows do come back. And then also, go check out the podcast, Tsunami Healing. It's on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify. We're also on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Tsunami Healing. And of course, you can catch us at Patreon at patreon.com/Tsunami Healing. Tsunami Uncut is there and waiting for you.
And you got to mention, too, that we're both in Horrorville, so that's even more of a reason to go check it out.
There you go, folks. I don't know what you're waiting for.
Justin, it's always a pleasure talking with you, sir, and thank you for being on my show.
Thank you so much, Dan. I appreciate it, man.
And that's Dumb Talks. Thanks again for listening. Be sure to subscribe at the bottom for future episodes. Who knows? Maybe I'll be talking with you next.